So I'm just going to take you on a bit of a tour around Inventor. So when you open it up, this is the home page here, and you'll see straight here you're going to have your project. So make sure once you've set your project up, that you're in your project. It's the first thing you should check when you open this up. If you find that it's gone to default because you've gone to a different computer or someone's reset the computer or something, just go into here to settings and browse, and you'll be able to look through your folders and find your project file that you created after in the first video. So I'm just going to look in this folder here for a second. There's 4 main file types we're going to deal with, well 5 if you count the PDF. So you've got these ones here called parts. So this is a single part that you've drawn up. You've got this one here where it's called an assembly file. So with the assembly file, we bring all the parts in and we constrain them together so they're stuck together, and we can check that they fit each other and all that sort of thing. We've got a drawing file. This is usually an IDW. So just look here. This is Windows 11, so you might say .idw. So this is basically the equivalent to a paper space, which you might be familiar with from AutoCAD. So this is where we take the drawing, we put it onto the title block and everything, and put all dimensions and views and things like that. This one here will be called an IPN. This is a presentation file. So this is, we take the assembly in and we stretch it out, pull the parts apart, so it's like an exploded view, and we can put trails and things on there so you can show how it all goes together. And PDF is just a PDF. So let's go into Inventor. So I'm in my correct project. Right, so I'm just going to open up some files I've got to show you the different environments. So this is the IPT. So this is the standard drawing your parts in millimeters. So when you go to File New, that's this one here, standard millimeter IPT, off the templates I've given you. One thing you can notice here, it's got convert to sheet metal. So what I've done for you guys is I've given you a standard template and a sheet metal template. There's no real difference there. You can, at any point in time, you can convert this to a sheet metal template, and same with the sheet metal one. You can go to the end and convert it to a standard part. So this is where we'll be drawing our parts up. So it's usually the first part I'm doing. And things to notice around here. So the environment, we have the menu is under here, under File. That's where we do all the saving, exporting to PDF, and something I do quite often. You can export to a DWG and all sorts of different drawing formats. The only one we'll be using is PDF in here. You can save it, and under here is a thing called the iProperties, which can tell you things like the weight and other things. You've got a few settings in here you can change. It's got like an author on here, so I can tell who's drawn it, when they drew it. There's more things you can put on there, but generally I don't. And see the materials on this last one. If I go update here, it's going to tell me this pulley is going to be 312 grams. It's going to give me some more information. So we won't use that too often, but just be aware it is here. We've got start sketch, and we've also got sketch here. So that's 2 ways of going about getting into sketch. So this is the start sketch. So on a new drawing with no parts being drawn up already, if you click on that, it's going to show you some planes that you can select. I usually will select the XY plane, because if you are drawing something, say a sheet metal thing, and you're going to flatten it out, Usually you're looking at a machine, say a plasma cutter or a laser, the width and depth of the sheet is in the XY plane and the height of the torch or the laser is in the Z plane. So generally I'm picking XY. It doesn't matter too much for most things. It's a good habit to get into if you're going to run a plasma or a router or something like that, where it's going to matter with the coordinates. So let's highlight over those just so you can see different ones. You've got an X-axis here, a Y-axis, a Z-axis, and a center point. So this center point is very important. That will be inside the part there, so that center point. So that is what you use to dimension everything from when you do your sketch. Even if I was to do another sketch on top of this one and put some more holes in it or something like that, that center point is always what I base things about. So that's 0x, 0y, and 0z. And you can see I'm clicking through here. This is the design browser. So this is going to keep adding things as you go. So you can see these are the origins. So what I would have done is I would have done a sketch and then I revolved it. You can see it's highlighting green what the feature is. And then after, so I've done that sketch, let's just view it. I'll go edit sketch so you can have a look. That's what this whole part's based on. So the first thing I did is I drew this on the XY plane, and then I used the revolve function to revolve the pulley around. And you can see if I click over here, only half of it's lit up. So that was the initial thing, the revolve of that shape. And then I mirrored it. So I only had to draw 1/4 of the actual pattern for it in order to make this part. And then I added some holes and things to it. So let's go to this view and go to this feature, extrusion. So you can see all the blue things are highlighted there. That was all the holes. So I did another sketch on this part, and I'll just show you the sketch while I'm here. And I'll slice the graphics so you can actually see it. So I did another sketch and I did all the holes and everything. So this thing here is really handy, this design browser. At any point when you draw something, if you decide you want to change it, you can come in here, right click it, edit feature, and then say I decided I only wanted half a pulley for whatever reason that was, I could come in here and change it to 180 degrees, and then it's only revolved half of it. So that's the really good thing about this type of software is once you've got your head around it and you can design something, and then you can come in and you can change bits and pieces of it without redrawing the whole thing from scratch. It takes a bit of time and experience to get that good, but just be aware it is there and things can be altered after they've been done. So that's the design browser and the sketch that we've talked about. See, I'll just open this again. If I go back to sketch, go edit, it's automatically jumped into that sketch tab anyway. So I generally don't click on that, I just edit the sketch or create a sketch and it opens it anyway. Then you've got these ones here. So I don't tend to use this. I may use inspect. So inspect, the main reason I'd use that is for the measure function, where I can click on, say, that diameter there, and it's going to tell me the diameter. And that's just for me to check. Sometimes it's a bit easier to just use the inspect and check it that way rather than going through the sketches and finding what sketch is based off and all that sort of thing. Tools, don't generally use that too often, but you've got appearance here, so you can change the color, you can put textures on it, that sort of thing. Manage, we will use this later on, and I mainly use this just to split something up into components. So you can draw multiple parts in this file, and if you tell it that it's a new part, it will be two or more separate parts in there. Or you can even split parts in half, as we'll do in an exercise later on. So this is going to be used to save as individual parts rather than one file. View. So the main thing I do in View is we've got visual style. So you'll notice when you open an assembly file or an IPN file, the visual style is by default is shaded like this. You see how it hasn't got those outlines of where the chamfers are and the holes are and all that sort of thing. So generally the first thing I do in an assembly file or an IPN file is I change this to shaded with edges, and it's a bit clearer to see that way. One thing I sometimes do is I'll come down here when I'm assembling things and I might use wireframe with hidden edges, and that will just allow me to see if parts are fitting together. So if a couple of parts are put together and I can't quite see what's going on, I might use the wireframe. But most of the time I'm on shaded with edges. Environments. Oh, another thing here. If you accidentally close out of your browser, you can find it here. So go back into View, Interface, and turn it back on. So we've got the navigation bar, status bar, document bar, model browser it's called here. So if you accidentally close this, which happens reasonably often, bring it back up with this one. We've got some further ones which I won't go into. It's a bit more, these things are a bit more advanced, but just they are there. The other thing I might use quite often is this one here. It's the material, so I'll click down on that. And you can change the material, so that's going to help you calculate the weights and the amount of material you used, center of gravity, all sorts of things. Right, so now we've gone through the tabs. Let's have a look over here. We've got the view cube, and if you want to make your way around the part and have like it square to those origin planes and points, you can click on these arrows, you can click on the cube, you can click on the corner for an isometric. You can also click on this home here, and that will bring it back to the home view, which is something you can set. Say I was doing a drawing and I didn't want to see that. I was more interested in seeing it like this, because maybe that's the way it's going in real life. I'm underneath it and that's how I'm going to see it, something like that. I can come over to home, right click, set current view as home, fit to view, which will mean when I double click the scroll button, it'll fill the screen, or fixed distance, it'll stay where it is now. So let's say fit to view, and I'll double click that. So now when I rotate around it, which the shortcut for that is to hold shift and your middle scroll button, that you will be using a lot, so remember that. It's also in the description on Moodle. So shift plus control. I get lost. Okay, so I'm drawing something, I'm lost, I can't figure out how to get back to where I was. I can come to this home or the view cube here and click around it and find my way around it a bit easier. Now this navigation pane does have options here. I don't tend to use this, so you probably won't see me using it, but if you find it easier you can. So this is the orbit that I was just doing with shift plus mouse key. This will be pan, this is zoom. I tend to use shortcuts for those things because I'm so often doing them while you're looking around the part and doing drawings and things. A couple of things down here, so you have your different tabs as well. I have different drawings up that I'm going to show you through the environments, and there's the home one here. So if you want to find your home where you come in, this is where you are. Just find that tab down the bottom. And also note there's two different ones. So these are your recent files. So as you go through the exercises, this will start populating. When you first start doing it, there'll be nothing on here. I think by default it goes to a list, but it's usually easy to use as a grid view. So I'd suggest putting it on grid. So that's that part. Let's go into assembly mode. You can see I've come into this assembly file. So this is where we're going to put all our parts together. We can bring parts in. We can even bring in things like this nut, which came from the Inventor Content Center. So the Content Center has a bunch of fittings in it. It has hydraulic fittings, nuts, washers, all sorts of stuff in there. Bolts, things like that. So we can bring in things if we want from Content Center. We can drop down here and bring Content Center in for nuts and bolts and things. And place is where you would go to bring in your parts. Main thing I do here when I open up a assembly is I'll go to view. First thing I'll go to view, visual style, and shaded with edges. So you can actually set that as the default option, but I'm trying to work with the defaults that come with the program for you guys, just so you don't have to worry about setting any of that up. So first thing, come in visual style, shaded with edges. So in the assembly space, mainly using this here. I don't tend to use much else. We will use a frame generator in one of the further things, and you can do 3D model, sketch, and things. So they all have a bit of a crossover, but mainly for assembly, I'm in assemble, and the only one I might go into is view and change the visual style. So here we can create a new part within the assembly. Don't generally tend to do that. We have this, what we call constraints. So this is going to be used a lot. So what this does is it tells the program how the things are going to be joined. So we'll go through that in a different video, because that's one of the most complicated things about this software. Also pattern, mirror, copy, so we can copy parts that are in there. We can make a bill of materials within here, and we can make new planes and all sorts of things. Main thing you need to know is this is where you bring your components in, and your nuts and bolts and things, and this is where you join them all together. The next one we'll look at is the IPN. This is quite a different environment. So this one is where we're doing exploded views. As you can see, I've pulled it apart. I've set up a view that's going to come into the drawing that you saw before. So that is that view there. I created it in the IPN, so that's where that comes from. And this is basically where you bring in an assembly file and you tweak the components and you pull them away from each other. You set up the camera angle, so you move around this cube where you use the orbit, and you set that up and you take a snapshot, and then you can put that snapshot into your drawing file. So generally speaking, when I'm doing this, I try and keep the parts, slight gap between the parts where I can. Sometimes it's not always practical, but you really want to try and make it clear that each part is its own thing rather than them being covering each other. It's going to make it easier to put the bubbles around it as well. And the main area I'm working in here is in the presentation tab up here and view. So like the other ones, I will come in, I'll go to view, and I'll do visual style to shaded with edges. It's just a bit clearer, easy to see what's in there. Now we've had a wee look at the IPN, let's have a look at the IDW space. So here we have a slightly different layout. So we have place views. So this is where we're going to bring the part in. We're going to orientate it. and put it in place where we want it and choose the kind of detail we want to see. So I could have brought this in as a file that you could see through with the hidden lines. I could have made it black and white. There's a lot of different options I could do, but the main thing you need to know is this is how you bring your drawing in, your part into your drawing. All this template here, that should come up. That's the template I've given you. And in here as well, we've got the sheets. So we've got 3 sheets in this drawing. You can navigate through them just by clicking on them. You can name them as well. And if you want to add more, you can come over to Place View, New Sheet. So that's where you're doing all your views in here, your place views. Annotate, this is where we're putting dimensions, parts list, bubbles, text like who drew it, what date it is, etc. All that's in here. We can do weld symbols as well. And we can even do a sketch on the paper space. Say if we wanted to do a wee drawing over here, just for some detail or something like that, we can. And you can also do sketch from here as well. So there's sketch there in that menu, there's sketch in this menu as well. Tools, generally don't really use this to be honest. Manage, this is where you can edit the styles. So this we're probably not going to get into in this course, but if you don't like the way something's represented, like you want the arrowheads to be bigger, say, on these bubbles, or you want the bubbles to be bigger, you can change that style. View, same thing again, if you close out of this, you can come back in here and turn things on. Environment, not going to worry about that, and collaborate, so not worried about that either. Main ones we'll be using, place views, annotate, sketch. They're these first 3 here. So that's your main workspaces we're going to be using. In terms of controls, I've written a list on Moodle. What you're going to need to know is the escape button is your friend. So I'm constantly using escape. I have my left hand pretty much on top of the escape button the whole time I'm using this program. That's because, say if I were to go into a sketch like this and I do a line, I see the line functions lit up, so I'll do it here. See, it's carrying on with that line, so I'm just going to go escape and that ends that command, and then say I want to do a circle and then go, oh whoops, I'll pick circle, I don't really want circle, go escape, and then I'll delete that. Control Z is another one that you're going to use a lot. So we've got undo. So if you make a mistake, quickly go Control Z and you'll get back out of it. The opposite to Control Z is Control Y. So Control Z is undo, Control Y is redo. So just remember that if you undo something that is quite important or took a lot of time and you want to fix it and you go, uh-oh, well, then you can go Control Y and it will redo what you've undone. And the shift plus the middle mouse button I've shown you before is orbit. So definitely going to be using that a lot. And the other one you can use is control plus the middle mouse button, which is pan. So it just moves it around the screen. Shift plus the middle button is orbit. Zooming on this program is backwards to AutoCAD. So AutoCAD, I believe, you scroll towards the screen to go into the part and scroll backwards to go away from the part. This one you drag it towards you and with the scroll button and push it away. That's how I think of it. I'm dragging it to me, pushing it away from me. You can see the arrow and the little mouse thing down there. So that should be a pretty good overview of the program itself, you'll get much more familiar with it when you do the exercises.